Stop podcast surfing. You're in the right place. I've always wanted to sing. Hi, everyone. I am your host, Kimbralon B. I'm a licensed counselor, but I'm not your counselor. And I'm also the host of Good Tea and Reads. So I created Good Tea and Reads so we could use everyday topics, issues, and current events to explain the importance of mental health awareness. Most mental health discussions are so important because so many people suffer in silence or do not realize that they're dealing with mental health issues because of stigma, society, and family expectations, and other reasons. Some episodes on Good Tea and Reads are heavy and will make us think. Other episodes will be very enlightening or refreshing. But either way, you will have an awesome experience. Here's the disclaimer. Any information shared on Good Tea and Reads is not a substitute for seeking professional care from another professional. Any information shared on Good Tea and Reads is not meant to diagnose the subjects or persons discussed on this podcast. Also, any information shared on this show is for conversational, inspirational, and educational purposes as well. So, all right, this intro is long enough. All right, so go grab your cups really quick. Go, 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 go. So I can pour this piping hot tea. Meet me inside on this episode in one, two, three. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Good Tea and Reads. I am your hostess with the mostest on the West Coast. Yes, Kimbralon B. How are you doing, everybody? I hope everything is going well. I am so excited today. I've been waiting for this show. The guest I have on this show is absolutely amazing, and I want you all to hear more what she has to say than me, okay? So, just a little quick rundown about me in case you skipped me singing and talking in my intro. I am a licensed professional counselor. I am not your counselor. And the reason I say that is not to be snarky. I say that because even though I work in the field and we have expert advice here on the show, or you may hear something that you like, well, this is very interesting. Maybe I should check that out. I would advise you to go connect with someone that's closest to you, where you're at, because you'll be able to share your unique situation and you'll be able to game plan with somebody that's closest to you. All right, so really excited about this show. I want to throw out a trigger warning. I've said in the beginning, some of our shows is really happy, and this show is not a somber show. But the reason I'm throwing out a trigger warning is merely because we're going to be talking about some sensitive content today. And again, the content that we're sharing on this show is not to shame, okay? So you may hear something and you may think, "Wow, I feel like I'm in that same situation." Again, it's not to make you shrink. Really, on Good Tea and Reads, my mission and my guest mission is to see you grow. And usually, if you hear somebody else going through something, you'll probably say, "I'm not alone." And when you hear them share how they navigated the story, you'll probably figure out you can navigate the story too, because usually when we're dealing with situations, we always feel like it's just us, that I'm the only one. And situations can make you feel that way. But when you get among somebody in a group or you hear someone share, you're like, wow, you know what? If they could do it, I could do it. Or at least I can begin on the path to do it. Okay? All right. So let me give a brief introduction of my guest. All right. So I do the podcast. I love teaming up with people. And I have some pretty amazing people that's in my circle. And they know that my mission is to get the importance out about mental health awareness. And they like, hey, I know this person. This person is just as amazing as you are. And I'm like, thank you. And so I reach out to people and I let them know what I'm trying to do. And then I hear their story and I'm like, can you please come on my podcast? And they're like, yes. So today is no different. So a friend connected me to my guest today. I reached out to my guest. And as I've said before on the podcast, I wish I could just hit record when I'm meeting people because they're really amazing. They bear their stories. We talk, we laugh. It's just amazing. And then when they come on the show, you have an opportunity to hear the amazing stuff that they have to say. So everybody that comes on Good Tea and reads, Jessica, you're not different. I actually went to your Instagram and Jessica does so much on Instagram. And then when I met her, I found out there's another side to her and another side. And I'm like, whoa, okay, just when you think you know someone, you don't. So I was like, you got to come on. And she said, you know what? Sign me up. And the topic that we're talking about today is going to be a good one. Again, there's a trigger warning. It may be some sensitive content, but I am sure viewers and listeners, you are going to get something from my guest today. So without further ado, Jessica, will you please introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for that introduction. Yeah, my name is Jessica DeSalvo. I am a breathwork practitioner. That is my side business. I would like to say it's what I do for fun, but it's one of my callings. I do breathwork and sound healing, somatic coaching. I work with individuals on shame reduction, and then full time, I work in healthcare. So I have a full time job. I'm a mom to a special needs kid and I'm in school full time. So I'm getting my MBA right now. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I've done a lot of work around some of my process disorders and perfectionism and shame reduction. And I find when my inner critic isn't going all day that I can be a lot more productive without stressing out. I have more resilience and courage to get things done. And so I don't feel super busy, even though when I say it out loud, it sounds really busy. But at the end of the day, I'm a mom. I'm a mom to 2 young men, and I'm a full-time worker. I'm a busy bee. I'm a boss woman. So I really enjoy giving back to my community. That's part of my calling is to be of service to other individuals like myself. So I'm very happy to be on the podcast today and be able to share my story.
Thank you. See, viewers and listeners, I told you, amazing. And it's so much to Jessica. And she's just as humble as can be. So I love it. All right. So we're getting ready to give the name of the podcast episode. Everyone, I'm excited because I've just been doing podcasts and I'm kind of solo until I get my sponsor. Okay. So until I get that sponsor, I'm doing everything myself. And I've actually numbered my episodes. So I'm pretty excited about that. But the name of this episode is pretty interesting because when I do episodes, I use the word tea. I try to integrate the word tea in there. And those who are tuning in for the first time, tea means information. So we have good information on the show. You may hear some people outside of the podcast say, well, what's tea? That means what's the information, okay? And reads are sometimes I cover books that talk about mental health, and we'll go through those books, analyze those books, and see what we can get from those books to help our mental health. So here's today's title. It is called Caregiver Reality, Parenting, and Mental Health. So that's the name of today's episode. So as you can tell by the name of the episode, we are talking about caregiving. And Jessica, honestly, caregiving is something that's really near and dear to my heart. And I do want to share this. And I was glad that Jessica is going to talk to us about this today. I have a daughter. She has 3 awesome children. 3. So they're diagnosed with autism and they're on different parts of the spectrum. It's just her, and she's having to navigate work, everything else, and take care of them and make sure that they're doing okay. I also have a best friend who has 2 awesome children too. They're adults. One, she's still actually providing caregiving for, and I have a family member that took care of her parents for years on end. And people don't understand with caregiving, it is a full-time job. When I say full-time, I'm not talking about 8 hours Monday through Friday. It is a full 24 hours a day job. And you have to figure out how to support that person that you're caring for or persons that you're caring for and taking care of yourself. So we're getting ready to get started. And I want to just open up with this. So, caregiving is an ongoing act of supporting someone's needs, advocating for their rights, coordinating their care, and offering a steady presence, compassion, and support. Caregivers can show up in many roles, but today we're focusing specifically on caregiving through the lens of parenting children with special needs and how that role continues as children grow into adulthood. For many families, caregiving doesn't end at age 18, it actually evolves. But honestly, it truly never stops. So, stepping into this role affects multiple social determinants of health, including employment, relationships, financial stability, and overall well being of the person that's providing the caregiving to someone else. And while all of those areas matter, in this episode, we are centering on one impact, and that is the mental health of parents that are caregivers for children with special needs. So, Jessica, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. So, can you share the difference between parenting a child versus parenting a child with special needs?
I mean, they're two different worlds. I learned I learned in the last few years too. So I have multiple children. I have one with special needs, one without. And often there is some emotional neglect to the child that is not special needs. So I've got a 15-year-old and we've been processing his abandonment around there. But when you have a child with high needs or any special needs, mine was high needs, it's your whole life. Appealing insurance claims, finding the right clinician, seeing psychologists, empathy engaging activities, having support in your house, switching schools, finding the right school. It took all of my time. And I don't think I realized that it took all of my time until much later and the impact that that had on the other children in my home. But I mean, we had an insurance company for a very long time that excluded mental health because it was too expensive. And so that looked like finding a new job and being married, but being the primary caregiver because I was in a home where my husband felt like that was the woman's responsibility. I was young, and so I took that on, I said, "No problem." And then working full time and finding employers that would support me leaving work when I needed to for appointments or maybe bringing my child to work with me when I needed to or just like having that conversation that family was first with all of my employers. And I've been really lucky that I've found employers that support that. I've had to leave jobs for people that don't. And just like navigating that and working with my husband at one point we talked about would it be easier for you to quit your job and stay home and do this full time, and for me that wasn't the answer. My son has schizoaffective disorder and he's diagnosed with ASPD, which is antisocial personality disorder. There's some other diagnosis, but at a young age, it was more of like operational defiance and pure O, and we had so many diagnoses and autism and Asperger's, and but it looked like lots of accommodations for him, and so that is what my life revolved around for 13 years.
Wow. Wow, with you sharing that, even sharing about the jobs, it made me think about my daughter. My daughter was trying to take care of her family as a solo parent, and she actually lost her, I think, yeah, 2 jobs, as a matter of fact, because having to take off work when you get the call, having to do inpatient treatment, getting where
Mhm,
they need to go, the bolting. 'Cause she bolting, safety issues, safety concerns.
mhm.
It's like you can't work if your child is taking off going towards traffic. You have to take care of that, and even though I'm glad you had jobs I was understanding, cause she didn't, and they was like, "We understand what you're dealing with, but"
Well,
and
and not to interrupt you, but I had employers that didn't, but I figured out our mental health system and made sure I worked for employers that had FMLA. And if you have a disabled child, you can apply for intermittent FMLA. So just like that first year, really honing in and making sure I'm there. So I hit my year mark that I can get my paperwork filled out so that I can take off and be a protected class. Like
yes.
it was really important to me to maneuver that piece of it so that I wasn't losing employment.
Yeah, that's good. I'm probably gonna pass that on to her because I don't know if she is aware about the FMLA piece.
If you have
So,
a child with special needs, even over 18, if they live with you and you're caregiving, if you're at an organization with over 60 employees under federal law, you're qualified as a disabled parent that can do intermittent 12 weeks a year. You can flex that time. I could leave for an hour and come back, or I could take a week. But I had 12 weeks of time that I could play with a year. I haven't had to use it all, but knowing that there are some protections there at the majority of the larger companies was really and so those were the jobs I sought. I wanted to make sure I didn't work for small business or, you know, stuff like that.
yeah, oh my gosh, that makes sense. And I know you were sharing a little bit about your personal experience. So, can you elaborate even more about? I know you were providing the caregiving, but again, to your comfort level, your personal experience of being a parent to a child with special needs.
I mean, for me, it was really hard. He was 6 when we got the first diagnosis. And so he was in kindergarten. And the school psychologist did a psych eval, and she came back to me and she told me, "I think your son might be a sociopath." And I told her to get bed, and I changed his school.
Yeah,
Lots of denial. Um, we changed a lot of schools. I saw a lot of psychologists that didn't tell me what I wanted to hear, and so I would go see another one. And there was a lot of that, I would say, for about 5 years of just looking for someone to tell me what I wanna hear, and so, like, moving around. I was a young mother, I had him when I was 19, and so, I was 26 while I'm dealing with that. I feel like that's fairly young now that I look at my children that are coming up on 20, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I had a baby." It was really hard. It was really hard finding care, it was really hard understanding what he needed. Like, valves are very expensive, medication management, I mean, it's a lot, and so just trying to find what worked best for him. We eventually found a school locally called the ACEs, and they specialize in neurodivergent children. The class sizes are 1 to 6. They have behavior coaches. They do a lot of therapeutic intervention. And so I was taught, therapeutic holds, and they had him jump on trampolines when he would be, reactive or excited. They had animals on site, which would calm them down. And we moved him to that school quickly within a few years. I would say probably 3. And he stayed there for a while and was really successful there. And so just finding what works best for your child, we have the No Child Left Behind Act, and so I had to go through different channels through public school to put him in programs that he failed in before they would be willing to fund the private education. And I'm a pretty big advocate for my child's needs, and I am so stubborn and persistent, uh, that, it took a while, but I never gave up. And that was like, I'm glad that I never gave up. It was a big part of like, okay, so this didn't work. Now what? What else is available? Don't tell me there's nothing else available. Like there's clearly, this can't be it. He's got to be successful, and just constantly pushing. So it was interesting. My child stayed in my home until he was 13. When he was 13, he moved out of my home into a care facility. Um, as he got older, therapeutic holds didn't work, and he could be violent sometimes. And it got to the point where he had hurt me significantly and the other child in my home. And so, I mean, there were other things that happened. Obviously there was a pretty bad assault that had happened in my house, and court was involved. And so it finally, around like 13, it got to the point where it was outside of my scope. And I think I really realized that I am not a psychologist, and this child might need care around the clock, like even at night while I'm sleeping, and med management. And I am not qualified to do this. And it looked like him going to a facility with people that could provide the care that he needed that I couldn't. And so he's been out of my house since he was 13. He has been in some long term care group homes, some adult behavior health group homes. He's 24 now. He turned 24 in January. And he lives on his own in Peoria. He's got some roommates. He's working at Walmart. He's pretty successful, but it's looked like just a lot of management, conservatorships for medical management, having to check in on, is he filling the scripts? When was the last time you saw a psychologist? And in doing things like that. But that's something that we've had to continue into adulthood. I've stepped back in the last few years. I really want him to learn how to be a successful individual in our community and productively participate in life, his own life. And so I know he needs to learn how to manage himself. And so I'm trying to step back and allow him to figure that out too. Like I cannot hover over him the rest of his life. And my mental health is impacted by that as well. And so the anxiety and the stress of managing his unmanageability, I really had to take a step back and say, like, is this healthy for me? And once I did that, then I recognized that, like, not only was it impacting me, but I have another child in the home that that it impacted significantly, like being gone and away and always putting this other child's needs first. Yeah, so it's been a wild ride.
Gosh, it sounds like it, but I mean, that's what we do all in the name of love and parenting and caregiving. So,
Absolutely.
for the purposes of making a connection between caregiving and mental health, everybody that comes on the show, I ask them for their definition of mental health. So, what's your definition, Jessica?
I mean, for me, mental health, I know there's like a clinical definition for mental health, but for me, it's all the things that impact us. So like process disorders. I mean, it can be something as specific as like saying like, "Oh, I have depression, I have OCD, I have anxiety." And did I have all of those things? Yes. But like also when we take that away, when there's not like a clinical diagnosis, like do I have this internal inner critic all day that's telling me you're not doing a good job? Am I sad? Am I isolating myself? Am I burnt out at work? Those are all things that I think encompass mental health as well. And so there's a little bit outside that clinical definition, but anything that impacts how I live my daily life. I want to be very aware of how I show up and what impacts me and how I show up. And um, the self-awareness around like who am I and what is important to me is is definitely a big part of my mental health.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. And we can definitely see how caregiving like intersects with mental health because how we're functioning on a daily basis, we mentioned earlier, caregiving is a full-time job. So it definitely will intersect. So parents of children with special needs, they undertake like various tasks, and this is probably not new to you, Jessica, such as the daily care, rehabilitation, training, and education for their children. And their parenting stress levels are higher than those of parents with children without disabilities. The article had mentioned that I got this information from that parents also have lower levels of mental health than those parents of children without disabilities. And I think it's because it's hard to navigate your own mental health while you're trying to make sure that your child is okay. And like you said, you have another child in the house. You could have a spouse or partner in the house. You could have someone else in the house. And you're trying to make sure that everyone else is okay. Mental health issues of parents of children with special needs could get overlooked in the process while we're providing that care. And that's why I'm glad that you came to the podcast today because I really think that there's a time where we got to quit overlooking this. And this is as a society. We don't take this into consideration. Caregiving is such a topic that people ignore because the people that are out there hustling and bustling, chances are they don't have to deal with caregiving. And because they're going, and they're achievers, they don't understand that the caregiver wants to achieve. They have goals that they want to pursue as well, but it's hard to pursue when you're having to pivot, navigate, stop, all of this. So, what I found very interesting, there was a study of 25,000 mothers of children with developmental disabilities. And the study discovered 83% of those mothers were diagnosed with depression, anxiety, some other mental illness, or stress. So, with all of that being said, Jessica, can you please share to your comfort level how mental health felt in your mind, body, and soul prior to using coping strategies to manage your emotions?
Oh, yeah. I mean, thank you for all that you just shared. Um, I think we forget that we have to care for the caregivers. And so I was not aware that those of us, and outside of mental health, I mean, we've got aging parents now that we're getting older and Alzheimer's. And I mean, there are a lot of people in caregiving positions, not by choice. And we forget that if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of you. I was not aware of any of that. So yeah, for me, I had complex PTSD, and I that what that looked like for me was I had a generalized anxiety disorder. I was heavily medicated for that. Medication for me was a Band-Aid, and it would work until it stopped working, and then we would up the dose, and we would up the dose, and we would up the dose, and we would add more. We would layer medications, and it looked like panic attacks. It looked like disassociating when things got really, really stressful. My body has a physical reaction to stress, not so much anymore. Remember seeing a psychologist, and when I get anxious, I would break out in hives from my fingers to my neck. And he was, my pH and my blood changes during stress. It is more acidic, and I break out in hives. Like, I have a physical reaction to stress because my body didn't know how to process it. And so it looked like me just being anxious all the time and sad, and not pausing to try to take care of myself. Obviously, I was going to providers and doctors, and I had a psychologist that I saw, and there was a lot of shame over what was going on in my home. So I didn't share always the truth with the providers about like what was happening to cause the stress and anxiety. but also like having to work and having a mortgage and having other children. Like I didn't feel like I could ever stop and pause. Like there was no permission to pause. And so just high burnout and stress. I mean, those statistics that you shared sound real. And I was completely unaware that there was another way to live. Zero awareness.
Because you're in it. You're in the thick
Yeah.
of it. So there was no other option, or it just seemed like, you know what? It's way far away. If I could get to that place that's over there.
It was go, 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 go until my body would literally hit a wall and fall apart. And then I would sleep for a few days and be super depressed and not know why, no awareness. So like, what is happening? Or I'd get really sick for a few days. And then I'd come out of it and I'd hit the ground running because I just felt like I didn't have a choice to stop.
Yes. Wow. So you mentioned shame. And I know when we were discussing the podcast, when we were talking, you mentioned that you like talking about shame reduction. And I was like, yeah, that's a major part of it, especially when we talk about stigmas and all of this stuff that's associated with mental health. So, going back to shame, can you please share with the listeners and the viewers about shame reduction?
For me, when my son was 13, he had a psychotic break and the police were involved and there was a court case and he was taken out of the home. The state decided I could not provide the level of care that he needed. And a lot of my family didn't realize how severe his issues were because I had so much shame around it. My brain tells me, or used to tell me, that I'm going to fix it before you can find out. Right. And that's the type of mom I was. And I did it in other areas of my life too. Like, I will keep this a secret and I will fix it before you find out because that's just how I was brought up. Like, we were perfect and um, it's important to look good on the outside. And I had a lot of shame over having a child with mental health issues. I thought, like, did I cause this? Is this me? Is it because I had him young? Is it my parenting? We had a psychologist that we saw after the state took him, and they did like a big psych eval. And my son will be more truthful with me in the room. At least at the time, he was. We were very close, and so they brought me in, and we were with Jewish Family Children's Services, high needs. They had caseworkers and they did a psych eval with him, and we were there probably like 2 hours. And afterwards, the therapist asked everybody to step out except for me, the psychologist. And she said to me, "This is a genetic condition." And she said, "You didn't cause this. I don't like this is not you. And this child's needs are so high, you need to get him out of your house. Like, he can't be around the other children." And it was helpful to like hear that. I've done a lot of work around it. I've worked with trauma therapists. I did EMDR around the situation. I did a year of that. It was suggested that I do somatic therapy, which is somatic means of the body. So somatic therapy is really recognizing like where we're holding that in our body, those emotions, and then working to physically move them out of our body through movement, through affirmations, through growling, through shouting. And what I what I realized is I had a ton of shame. And I had a little cup and I would pour shame in it every day. Just a little bit, just a little bit. And it got to the point where the cup was so full that it just tipped over and spilled. And that's when I started doing my own shame reduction work. And so I work with individuals to, one, there are other mothers like me. I've met quite a few of us. It is a very exclusive club um, of moms that have dealt with children with the severity of difficulties that I have, but I've met them. And going through what I have, like, mental illness does not discriminate. It doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter your level of education. Um, and that's something I just had to like wrap my head around, really reframing my thoughts and like that internal critic that I have that tells me you could do more. This is your fault, or keep it a secret. Nobody needs to know. And I've really found that shame thrives in secrecy. So the more we talk about it, the more I'm open, the more it dissipates. It goes like if I lean in and I share my experience, my strength around this and what my life is like now, the shame dissipates. It's been a big thing for me, and so I try to share that with individuals that I work with, that reframing our thoughts, our internal critic, and really trying to move that shame out of your body. And so the techniques that I was taught were I went and got certified in the breath work, in somatic, psychology, in sound healing, because I thought, oh my God, like this worked for me. It might work for someone else. I didn't know I needed it. And once I had it and I saw the impact on my life, I thought to myself, what if someone else needs this?
Mhm. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Talking about that shame reduction and the inner critic, do you believe that shame reduction contributed to you managing your own mental health and other responsibilities with being a caregiver?
I mean, it really did. It changed how I showed up. When I was acting from a place of like shame, there's no boundaries. I give all of myself to you, regardless of whether or not that's healthy. I go above and beyond, which I know there's this duality as a mom of like, yes, that's my job, and like I have to take care of myself. And on top of that, there are some things as a mother of a child with special needs that are outside of my scope. Like I am not a psychologist, and I have to remind myself that and it's okay. It doesn't make me a bad mom just because I can't figure this out. And I had the same psychologist tell me once, like, a lot of the moms I meet don't push as hard as you do. And I just thought to myself, like, what? Like, like what? What do you mean? Like there's an option not to do everything? And just like wrapping my brain around that, like it's okay to take care of myself. It's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to say like this is too much. I need help. And so it's really helped me on how I show up for him and my level of involvement. And obviously, as he's gotten older, that's looked very different. When he was a teenager, I was we're talking, even when he wasn't in my home, like 3 appointments a month. I was at every medication management, every psych eval, every high needs team meeting, and then he had a team of 5 that managed him. And I remember they struggled. He did have to go in and out of Oasis Behavioral Health. There was a few psych holds and where we had to stabilize him. And sometimes it was 6 weeks he was in a hospital. And I remember being in a complex case management meeting with them and them just being bewildered on what to do next and seeing that and thinking, oh my God, like a team of 5 professionals that are trained in this are struggling. Like, what was I thinking? Like trying to do this at home all by myself. And I know that in hindsight, so it's been 9 years since all of this has happened, but in hindsight, it took about 4 years for me to get here. I remember thinking like my biggest regret was that I didn't involve other people sooner.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
wished I would have sought I sought resources. I wish I would have talked to other people about what was really happening, been a little more clearer that it felt like I needed resources out of what I had. I thought it would make me a bad mom if I couldn't fix it.
Jumping in on that, because what you were sharing, and it's good that you have the mom group to provide that support to other moms and probably have
Dads
met.
too. I've got a dad in the group.
Wow, okay,
It's
that's
not always
awesome.
just the women.
Sorry,
Sometimes it's
Dad.
but like, and that's a real thing too.
Yes,
Usually my experience is there's a lot of moms, but there are men that are in charge too, that are
yes.
doing the same thing that we're doing. And they might not have a choice, or they might be a single dad or divorced, or, they might have full custody. And I've met men that are going through what I'm going through too. So for sure.
Wow. Wow. Here's my next question. And I was like, it sounds kind of harsh, but I don't know. It Do you think people choose to suffer in silence instead of seeking help or resources to support caregivers?
I mean, for me, I don't know that we are cognitively aware that it is a choice. So it might be like, but yes, it was a choice for me. Like, looking back, like, I wanted to keep things private, and I didn't want everybody to know my business. I had fear of judgment, of what other people would think of me, even at a clinical level. Fear of judgment of like what this psychologist would think, or therapist would think, or maybe I'm not running my house right, or fear of shame and judgment from other individuals. And so I was like, you know what? I'm doing this on my own. And I just thought nobody would understand. I had a hard time wrapping my brain around the idea that there were other people like me dealing with the same situation. I thought, there's no way. There's no way I'm the only one. This is so complex. Um, it was so big for me that I just could not wrap my head around the fact that there would be other people going through the same experience.
Okay. And tying into that, the fear, shame, fear of judgment, all of those words, Jessica, can you share with us what made you say, look, enough? And you probably have shared this before, but it's like this is a lot, it's becoming overbearing. What inspired you to take that step forward to seek support for your own mental health?
So it was a physical manifestation for me. The incident happened. We were in court. It was a criminal case. It was an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And I had to testify against my own child in court and advocate for his mental health needs to make sure that he was getting the support that he needed. And I started passing out. I would disassociate and fawn on the stand. And that happened quite a few times. I would say 3 or 4 times in court. We moved to a closed courtroom. There were some other activities in the courtroom that were stressing me out, but my stress level in my body was so high that my body didn't know what to do with it, and it would fawn. I knew I wasn't breathing. I remember telling my therapist, "I don't think I'm breathing." She said, "How do you know?" I said, "Well, because when they're waking me up, they're shaking me and they're saying, 'Breathe, breathe.'" And that's happened like 3 times. So I'm just thinking maybe I stopped breathing. Because I wasn't aware of what was happening. And she said, "You've got to get some help." And so that's when I started EMDR. I went to a trauma therapist for about 6 months to prepare me for the EMDR. And, I was so miserable. And I don't recommend that anybody get there, but I was so unregulated emotionally. I mean, I would be driving and I would get a phone call and hear his name and pass out. Like, I remember having to pull over and having a panic attack and my fingers curling up, and like not being able to call 911 for someone to come get me. And I thought, this is like, I got to figure this out, cuz the Xanax wasn't working, and like, it was a patch for me. I'm not saying that medication isn't right for everyone, but we were just patching the problem, and the problem was is it would wear off.
Yes.
And then all that stuff was still there for me. And we would up the dose, and then it would wear, and it was like, I guess I could have been on it all day and not working, but that for me just didn't feel like a solution, not a viable solution for how I wanted to live my life. And so I didn't feel like I really had a choice. I mean, it was either go get help and figure out what was going on and be open to some really wild suggestions because I work in healthcare, and even the EMDR, I was like, "You want me to do what?" You know? Like, I'm in a safe space and, because and I don't know what your experience is with that, but, I did trauma therapy, and when we started off, like, I had a safe space that we started at. So we would meditate. There was a table that I came to. I would bring my different parts to the table. She would have discussions with, like, my little girl and my teenager, and then we would start processing information in EMDR. And I just thought, "You gotta be kidding me," you know? But I did it because I wanted relief. I was in so much physical pain from my anxiety that, I could have gone home and just took Xanax and drank all day because I know some people do that, and for me, that wasn't a solution, you know? And I talked to people that are in that, like, "Let's medicate our feelings," and I was like, "What if we could get them out of your body?" Like, what if there was a different way?
You thank you for sharing your personal story and sharing like some of your coping strategies. I know you mentioned earlier that you do breath work, sound healing. And what I admire about people who have had to figure out how to navigate is that they get the tools, they learn how to navigate, but then they want to support others. And that really warms my heart. And so you took your caregiver support, as you mentioned, by having the group and your advocacy efforts because you advocated to get your kiddo what he needed. And parents and caregivers, they need to hear that as well, that you got to advocate because these schools or whatever say they can't, no, and everything else, you got to advocate. But can you share how you help others manage their mental health because you figured out a lot along the way and you took it to a professional level? So, can you share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I have volunteered for some organizations. Copa Healthcare is local in Arizona. They actually, Mental Health Awareness Month is May, so that is coming up. And they have every week they do an online course, and they have a lot of courses that are caring for the caregivers. So I have participated in just like talking to individuals that maybe have children with mental health or adult children or parents with Alzheimer's or aging parents in their home. Caregiving can look different. For me, it was a mental health issue, but there are other individuals that are caregiving that we don't know about. Just really advocating in our community. So, working with those individuals, whether it be men or women. I work for an organization locally. I work for Sonora Quest Laboratories. And so I am on a diversity council that we started 2 years ago. A year and a half ago, I had them start a wellness circle. I was participating in and advocating and starting a ERG around health and wellness. And I've done some sound healing. I've done some breath work with individuals. I've also done some talks on like shame reduction and really reframing our thoughts and how that impacts us at work. But then I also teach at a studio and do the sound healing, which is where I started. So I was like, okay, this is woo woo. I'm in mental health. You want me to do what? You know? And they said meditate, but it was explained to me EMDR is like meditation. That's how we start to get into the process. And I was like, okay, I can like, and I see that working. And so I can take it a little bit farther. And so when I work with whether it be a man or a woman, because I'm everybody, everybody deserves support. I talk to them about like that shame reduction and like living out loud and finding a therapist that they can process with. So a lot of the breath work and sound healing that I do, especially the breath work, I do somatic breath work. I am trauma informed. Breath work is a big thing right now. And so you see a lot of stuff that is very theatrical and production and banging and loud noises. That is not what I do. I'm not trying to excite your nervous system anymore. Your body actually knows what it needs to do. And that is a big part of the breath work that I teach, the somatic. we do an hour and a half class, and I bring you into this breath pattern that will activate your nervous system and allow you to release emotions. That looks a little bit different for everybody. Some people might cry or laugh. You might take a really good nap. You might get hot or cold. Everybody's experience is different, but I'm a big advocate about finding an individual that they can process with afterwards, and sometimes that looks like me after class. I do have a trauma certification, but I do always suggest like find a therapist. I like what you said earlier, I am not your therapist. I have some good ideas and I can share my experience and some suggestions that work for me, but ultimately at the end of the day, you might need to find an individual that you can work with professionally to process some of the big feelings and emotions and memories that come up with me.
Thank you for sharing that because I've taken a couple of breath work and sound healing classes, and you are definitely right. The very first one I went to, I felt so bad because I fell asleep and I was like, okay,
That's a
this
good
is
thing.
horrible.
Oh,
But they was like, no, that's fine. You're still getting what you need. And I was like,
mhm.
okay, but I did. I felt refreshed, and then I felt like I these memories came up. I mean, it was good memories too, because I went at a time that I had a total knee replacement last year, and so I was like real nervous about it on the inside because I heard that it's huge. You read on Google. I'm reading what I have to do, and I'm like, ah. But during that, I saw myself just running through a field. And I
I
was
love it.
after I had that, and it was during that moment, I was like, I felt better. Like I got this, it was going to be okay. And after that, all the anxiety just minimized. Of course, you have the normal anxiety, but it wasn't as huge as it was because I was like reading nonstop, like what's going to happen and what if this happens. But after that, I was like, you know what? There's the confirmation. Not shared at the end. I'm like, yeah, I was running through a field, and people were like, okay. I was like, it's a long story, but it was what I got what I needed. That's what I was saying. So, speaking of that, because you've shared so much information, and wow, guy, I told everybody, listeners and viewers, told you Jessica was amazing. Okay. But can you tell us about your services? How to book appointments? Do you do virtual services and any website information?
So I do have a website. It's shemakesmagic.org. So that is my website. I don't do virtuals right now. I do some virtual stuff for corporations where I'll like log into Teams and do a workshop, but not like one-on-ones. I work at the Healing Tree Collective in Tempe, so I teach breath work there on Monday nights. And then I also work for the Scottsdale Resort and Spa, and they are on Eventbrite. If you go and follow them on Eventbrite, I am their sound healer. So I actually offer a free sound healing every month there. I just feel like people should have access, whether or not they have funds to experience. And so I do a full moon sound bath. It's on every full moon. It does rotate, so it's not the same day every month because the moon changes. And then at the Healing Tree Collective, it's affordable. So it's $20 to drop in for breath work. And I'm there on Monday nights at 7:30. But I do a lot of private stuff in individuals' homes. So I've done like Galentine's parties. I did a bridal shower recently where we did a little sound healing meditation before the wedding to calm the bridesmaids down and kind of what you shared, reduce that anxiety. And then I've done some big breathwork classes for individuals too. Happy to come into your home or meet you at the studio. I do a lot of corporate things as well, where I'll go into strategic planning and do breath work and sound healing, really align everyone in the beginning and then send them on their way to go plan for the year. So, yeah, lots of places you can find me. Shemakesmagic.org, Healing Tree Collective. They're in Tempe. And then in North Scottsdale, I'm at the Scottsdale Resort and Spa, and they are on Eventbrite.
Thank you. So, if someone is watching outside of Arizona, do you have any websites or resources for them? Like if they wanted to get connected, like into breath work, sound healing?
So, I mean, for mental health resources, I mean, there's mentalhealth.gov, which will, for the moms, or if you're struggling and you're like, I need uh, trauma therapy or maybe EMDR is the answer. As far as breath work and sound healing, a lot of the yoga studios have it. You can Google breath work if you're local. There's not like a national institute for breath work. There's so many places that certify you. And here's my suggestion because I have been doing breath work for 7 years now. I've been teaching for 4. I would suggest that you go and try stuff. I've been to a lot of practitioners that I drop in and I think to myself, oh no, I don't want to do this again with them. I'm not coming back. So listen to that, and then try something else. I've been to a lot of people. There is an amazing woman locally that I absolutely adore, and that's who I practice with because I need to continue my maintenance as well. If I'm going to work with the community, it's important that I take care of myself. But yeah, I mean, if you're out of state, I would Google breathwork facilitators. A lot of studios have the sound healing, so yoga studios. And I would drop in and take a class and see if it's for you. Just open mind, kind of what you shared. My very first sound healing class, I think I fell asleep, but I didn't. I think I might have been in like a meditative state, but I saw all these colors and then all of a sudden I fell asleep and then she woke me up and I thought, "Oh my God, has it been an hour?" And I
Yes.
was like, "What happened? What was that?" And to try it a few times before you're like, "This is not for me." I always tell everyone that I work with, maybe come 2 or 3 times before you make a decision that this teacher, this studio, I hate breath work. Maybe try it 3 times. Because I've had experiences, even me, with my background, I've gone into a studio and been like, oh, I didn't like that. Like, oh, I didn't drop as deep as I wanted. I don't feel like I got anything out of it. But I will come back and the truth is it's usually me. It's not them. I'm
Yes.
usually the problem. And you'd be surprised if you try something 3 times, how much you might really enjoy it.
I encourage people to like it's the same thing on the counseling and therapy side. I'm like, try it. You may have to try different providers to see who you'll click with, but just don't try
Hmm.
it once and say, "Oh, I'm not doing this again." Cuz I'm like you, it may be me, right? And sometimes if it's you and there's some stuff coming up, it's if you're with the right person, you can work through it. But just I always like to say, use your discernment. Like, let's just see, are they challenging you and it's going to be a good challenge, or are you like really uncomfortable and just need
Right.
to escape? Then go, exit and go. Okay. But
Yes. And
just don't give up. Go ahead.
I talk the same, I mean, I teach the same thing in class, and I tell people this might not be for you. And if your body is screaming no, and it's like a full body no, and you need to get up in the middle of my class and walk out, I will not be offended. You do not have to stay and talk to me. You're more than welcome to message me, and we can work through whatever that was if you want to. But you're allowed to leave. We're adults, you know.
Yes.
And but I implore you to try to stay. I get real curious about what's happening. But I mean, especially with people with like my background, I have some significant traumatic events and a history of SA, of sexual assault when I was younger. And so non consensual touch is non negotiable for me. And so if I were to walk into a classroom and someone touched my body while I was laying down without asking, I would get up and leave. And so and that's part of why I'm trauma informed because I realize that boundaries and consent looks really different for people with a background like me. And I want to be inclusive and I want to have a safe space for you. I want you to have the psychological safety to tell me no and
Yes.
get up and leave. Or I don't do a lot of touch in my sessions. Sometimes I'll have everybody lay down and say, raise your hand if you're okay with touch. And if the whole room doesn't raise their hand, then there's no touch. I don't want to put someone in an environment where they don't feel safe. So, yeah, like what you shared, sometimes it's okay to just leave. Like, trust your intuition, practice discernment, but get curious about what's coming up because
Yes.
there are definitely times I was like, what is this big feeling? I want to leave. And I stayed, and I'm glad that I did.
Yes. Yes, because you feel that freedom. Sometimes it's trying to escape or something. So, yes, let it go. Jessica, this has been great. This hour has passed by fast too.
It has.
Yes. Thank you for sharing so much about being a parent, caregiver of a child with special needs. Like, this is really informative. And I'm hoping that my friend, my daughters, and everybody else that I know will tune in and be able to identify with a part of what you're saying. And if they are like stuck or if they're dealing with some shame, hopefully the information that was shared here that they would find liberating. Of course, it's not easy, but it's doable. It's same as the caregiving piece. Like, it's not easy, but it's doable. And taking care of your mental health, getting engaged in whether it's counseling, therapy, breath work, sound work, a support group, plugging in, it will help you get that relief and support you need, or to help you identify what is the next step that you'll need in your life to be able to navigate this and take care of your mental health at the same time. Again, I'm hoping that the information we shared here on this episode will help you grow. It's not to make you shrink, okay? That's not our goal. If you feel like you're shrinking, hit me up at goodteaandreads@gmail.com and I will lift you up, because just like Jessica was saying, it may be something that's coming up. And usually shame fights us because shame has taken residence in you for so long. We've just navigated through life. We go shopping at Fry's with our shame, because it's dormant, right? It only
We
gets
do.
shaken up every now and again when something comes against it. But usually, when you're taking a step to take care of your mental health or to take care of your overall well being, then it rises up. It gets uncomfortable. It wants to make you uncomfortable because it wants you to flee and not get away from it. So, hopefully, you'll get something from this show. If you don't, listen to it again, okay? Because I'm sure you're going to pick up something. All right. So, before we close it out, Jessica, any last words for our listeners and viewers?
I mean, just know that you're not alone. I think that was the biggest thing for me, is thinking that there's no way anybody would understand what I'm going through. And so I'm not going to say a word. And so, I mean, that's shame and fear just trying to keep us small. And just know that you're not alone. So if you're in a situation where you need someone to talk to, I know caring for the caregiver, if you Google that, there's a lot of organizations that do talks and have classes on that. The Alzheimer's Foundation does, but there's a lot of mental health organizations, especially coming up in May for mental health awareness. You're going to see a lot more of that, especially if you search for it. Maybe get involved, look for like a local group, and start sharing your story. Don't be scared to be bright and shiny and big about it.
Yes, I agree. I will have some of those links in the episode description, everyone, including Jessica's information and my information. This has been great. We got another great episode in the books, everyone. So until next time, everyone, take care of yourself. This is Kimbralon B signing off. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Thank you.